The Concordat had a classification system for dangerous worlds that left little room for interpretation. Class 5 apex predator planets were marked with warning beacons that could be seen from 3 star systems, away their crimson glow, serving as both threat and promise. XJ272 was one such world orbiting a binary star system in the outer rim of Concordat space, where the twin suns cast dancing shadows across landscapes filled with creatures that evolution had perfected into living weapons. High above the planet's swirling atmosphere, Observation Station Epsilon 12 maintained its silent vigil. The station was a marvel of Vexillian engineering, its bioorganic hull, shifting and adapting to the cosmic radiation that painted the void in sheets of ethereal light. Within its corridors, 3 researchers worked in shifts that never truly ended, monitoring the deadly ballet of predator and prey far below. Dr. Lexi, of the Vexillian Third Clutch, peered through the station's bio-optical sensors, her scaled fingers dancing across controls that resembled living coral more than machinery. Her colleagues, Professor Enva and Kuhl, hunched over displays showing thermal readings and chemical analyses of the planet's surface. For 17 cycles, they had watched the Shadowstalkers hunt in the Krishan Basin, documenting their kill patterns, with the detached fascination of scientists studying something safely locked behind multiple layers of vacuum and early warning systems. Another mining probe went dark. Professor Enva reported his voice carrying the musical quality common to Vexillians. Sector 7 near the crystalline deposits. The corporation will want explanations. Dr. Lexi made a note on her living tablet, which absorbed the information through touch alone. Standard apex predator response to intrusion. Recommend automated harvesting only, with sacrifice drones as decoys. It was Kuhl who first spotted the anomaly. His younger eyes caught the thermal signature approaching the dead probe before the station's sensors even registered it. Movement in Sector 7. Large biomass signature, but there's something else, something smaller. The 3 researchers crowded around the display as the image resolved. What they saw defied every protocol in their extensive training. A human male, clearly identifiable by his bipedal stride and thermal pattern, was walking directly toward where a shadow stalker lay near the wreckage of the mining probe. The predator wasn't moving, which was unusual enough, but what happened next would be discussed in academic circles for decades to come. Alexander Novak had come to XJ272 as part of the Terran Medical Corps' initiative to study xenobiology in extreme environments. Humans were still the newest members of the Concordat, having joined only 50 years ago, and their reputation for unpredictable behavior preceded them like a warning label. Alexander wore a standard biosuit equipped with advanced medical nanites, a portable surgical suite that could rebuild tissue at the molecular level, and enough combat stims to fight off a small army if necessary. He had served as a combat medic during the Rigel conflicts, seeing things that would have broken lesser minds, and he approached the unknown with the calm professionalism of someone who had already seen the worst the universe had to offer. The Shadowstalker was magnificent even in its injured state. Nearly 4 meters long, its obsidian carapace rippled with bioluminescent patterns that spoke of pain and fury. 6 legs, each ending in claws that could punch through starship hull plating, twitched spasmodically. The creature's multiple eyes, arranged in a crown around its elongated skull, tracked Alexander's movement with predatory intelligence. Blood, the color of midnight, pooled beneath its torn abdomen, where mining laser fire had caught it, during what was likely a territorial dispute over the probe's intrusion. On the station above, emergency protocols were already in motion. The Concordat emergency response team was being briefed, their ship's weapon systems powered and ready. Standard procedure called for immediate termination of any Class 5 apex predator showing signs of distress, as wounded specimens were exponentially more dangerous than healthy ones. But Alexander Novak had never been one to follow standard procedure. "Warning, Dr. Novak, please maintain safe distance from the subject," came the voice from his comm unit. Dr. Lexi's tone carried the authority of someone who had studied these creatures longer than Alexander had been alive. Shadow stalkers are most dangerous when wounded. Retreat to minimum safe distance and await emergency response team. Alexander paused, his eyes meeting those of the shadow stalker. In that moment, something passed between human and predator that transcended species barriers. The creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted from aggressive orange to a deeper blue, its breathing labored, but not panicked. Alexander had seen that look before, in the eyes of wounded soldiers, who knew death was approaching, but hadn't given up hope. Negative station, Epsilon 12. Alexander replied, his voice steady, as he began unpacking his medical kit. I am implementing emergency medical protocol. This creature is in shock and losing fluids rapidly. Without immediate intervention, it will die within the hour. The silence that followed his statement seemed to echo across space itself. On the station, the three researchers stared at their screens in disbelief. Professor Enva was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. He's actually going to try to treat it. A shadow stalker. Either that human has lost his mind, or he possesses a level of courage that borders on the divine. Alexander approached slowly, his movements deliberate and non-threatening. The shadow stalker's eyes followed him, but the creature made no move to strike. Perhaps it was too weak, or perhaps it recognized something in the human's intentions that transcended the usual predator-prey dynamic. Alexander began speaking in low, soothing tones, the same voice he had used to comfort dying soldiers on a dozen battlefields. Easy there, beautiful. I know you probably want to tear my head off right now, but let's focus on keeping you alive first. We can discuss my life expectancy later. The medical nanites in Alexander's suit had already analyzed the creature's biochemistry through atmospheric sampling. Shadow stalker physiology was remarkably similar to Earth's extinct arthropods, but scaled up and enhanced by millions of years of evolutionary pressure. Alexander deployed a localized anesthetic field, watching as the creature's bioluminescent patterns shifted to a puzzled yellow-green. That's it, just breathe. This is going to sting a bit, but I promise it will help. On the station, scanners tracked every biometric shift. Dr. Lexi's instruments detected changes in the shadow stalker's stress hormones, neural activity patterns, and cellular regeneration rates. What she was seeing challenged everything she thought she knew about apex predator behavior. Its cortisol levels are dropping, she reported, her voice carrying a note of wonder. Aggression markers are down by 30%. How is that possible? Alexander worked with practiced efficiency, his medical suite's instruments, interfacing with the creature's biology in ways that should have been impossible without years of careful study. The portable surgical unit began tissue reconstruction at the wound site, while specialized probes monitored the creature's vital signs. Most remarkably, the shadow stalker remained still, its multiple eyes watching the human's every movement, with what could only be described as curiosity. Good, very good. You're a lot smarter than the textbooks give you credit for, Alexander murmured, injecting a carefully calibrated nutrient solution to replace lost fluids. The professor up there probably thinks I've gone completely insane. Maybe I have. But I've seen enough death in my life to recognize when something wants to live. The shadow stalker's response was immediate and startling. Its bioluminescent patterns began to pulse in a rhythmic sequence, colors shifting from blue to green to a warm amber that spoke of gratitude. Alexander found himself smiling despite the absurdity of the situation. Well, would you look at that? You're trying to talk to me, aren't you? He reached into his pack and produced a protein synthesizer, quickly assembling nutrients tailored to arthropod digestive systems. Here, try this. Consider it a peace offering between species. The creature's mandibles opened with surprising delicacy, accepting the offering. The effect was immediate. Its bioluminescence brightened, and the trembling in its limbs subsided. Alexander continued his work, sealing tissue, regenerating damaged organs, and establishing a temporary circulatory bypass for the worst of the internal injuries. Above, the Concordat emergency response team had arrived, their weapons platforms powered and targeting systems locked onto the surface below. Captain Thorne, a veteran of a dozen pacification campaigns, studied the tactical display with growing confusion. "Explain to me again why we're looking at a human conducting field surgery on a Class 5 apex predator," he demanded. "And why the creature isn't currently wearing him as a decorative hat." Dr. Lexi found herself in the unprecedented position of trying to explain something she didn't fully understand herself. All biometric indicators suggest a non-hostile interaction. The creature is exhibiting behaviors consistent with trust. Trust? Captain Thorne's laugh held no humor. "Lady, that thing down there has enough venom to kill a small city, and claws that could cut through battle armor like tissue paper. Humans don't form trust with apex predators. They form lunch." But the evidence was undeniable. Alexander had finished his medical intervention and was now sitting beside the massive creature, sharing rations, while his patient's wounds finished healing under the nanite's careful ministration. The Shadow Stalker, which Alexander had begun calling Midnight in honor of its coloring, was not only tolerating the human's presence, but seemed to actively enjoy it. "We should prepare containment units," Captain Thorne decided finally. "Both of them. The creature for study, the human for psychological evaluation. Standard protocol for first contact incidents involving apex predators." Dr. Lexi felt a chill that had nothing to do with the station's recycled atmosphere. "Captain, I strongly recommend against separation. The biochemical bonds forming between these two subjects are unprecedented. Forced separation could trigger an aggressive response that could result in a rescued specimen and one less reckless human cluttering up Concordat space." The captain finished coldly. "Deploy containment fields. We're bringing them both up." On the surface, Alexander felt the shift in air pressure that announced incoming ships. Midnight's head rose sharply, its patterns shifting to aggressive orange as scanner beams swept across them both. Alexander stood slowly, one hand resting gently on the creature's carapace. "I know, friend. I can feel them coming too. Don't worry, I won't let them separate us." The first containment field generator landed 50 meters away, its gravitic emitters charging with an ominous hum. Midnight rose to its full height, a display of predatory magnificence that would have terrified armies. But instead of attacking it, moved to stand between Alexander and the approaching threat, its body language unmistakably protective. "Stand down, Dr. Novak," came the amplified voice of Captain Thorne. "You will be contained and transported for evaluation. The specimen will be secured for research purposes." Alexander's response was to reach up and stroke the armored ridge above Midnight's eyes, calming the creature with a touch that should have resulted in his immediate dismemberment. Instead, Midnight's patterns shifted to the warm amber of contentment, though its stance remained protective. "With respect, Captain Midnight here isn't a specimen. He's my patient, and now he's my friend. We're a package deal." The containment fields activated energy barriers springing to life around both human and Shadow Stalker. But Captain Thorne had underestimated both the creature's intelligence and its loyalty to its healer. Midnight's bioluminescence flared to blinding intensity as it interfaced with Alexander's medical suite through touch alone. The combination of human technology and apex predator biology proved more than a match for Concordat containment protocols. The energy barriers flickered and died as Midnight's electrical output overwhelmed the generators. Alexander, working in perfect synchronization with his companion, targeted the ship's scanner arrays with precisely directed nanite swarms. Within minutes, the Concordat's best technology lay in smoking ruins around them. "Remarkable," Dr. Lexi breathed, watching the display from the station. "They're working as a unit. The neural synchronization alone suggests a level of interspecies cooperation that we thought was impossible." Captain Thorne was less impressed. "All units weapons free. Target both subjects for neural paralysis. We'll sort out the pieces later." But Alexander had spent 50 years learning when to fight and when to talk. He activated his comm system on an open channel, his voice carrying clearly to every ship in the response fleet. "This is Dr. Alexander Novak of the Terran Medical Corps. I am formally requesting asylum for myself and my companion under concordant first contact protocols. We have achieved a stable interspecies relationship that could revolutionize our understanding of apex predator behavior." Silence stretched across the communication channels. Then Professor Enva's voice speaking carefully, but with growing excitement. "Captain Thorne, I recommend implementing non-intervention protocols immediately. What we're witnessing here may be the most significant biological discovery in concordant history." "The creature could turn on him at any moment," Captain Thorne protested, but his weapons remained unfired. "Sir," called out Quool, "behavioral analysis indicates a 99.7% probability that the human is safer with the Shadow Stalker than away from it. The biochemical markers suggest a mutual bond that goes beyond simple cooperation." Alexander smiled, feeling Midnight's warm bulk beside him, the creature's bioluminescence pulsing in harmony with his own heartbeat. "Captain, let me ask you something. When was the last time you saw a Class 5 apex predator choose not to kill when it had the chance? When was the last time one protected something weaker than itself?" The question hung in the air like a challenge to everything the Concordate thought it knew about the universe. Slowly, reluctantly, Captain Thorne powered down his weapon systems. "Stand down all units. Implement long-range observation protocols. Command is going to want detailed reports on this development." Dr. Lexi found herself smiling for the first time in cycles. "Dr. Novak, would you be willing to participate in a detailed study of this relationship? The scientific implications are staggering." Alexander looked down at Midnight, who had curled up beside him like an enormous armored cat. "On one condition, Doctor. We do this together as partners, not as subject and specimen. Midnight deserves the same respect you'd give any Concordate citizen." "Agreed," Lexi said quickly, before Captain Thorne could object. "I'm transmitting non-interference orders to all vessels in the system. Welcome to the family, Dr. Novak, both of you." The days that followed brought a parade of xenobiologists, diplomats, and curious officials from across Concordate space. Alexander and Midnight became the center of a scientific revolution, their relationship proving that intelligence and emotion could bridge even the most impossible gaps between species. Midnight demonstrated problem-solving abilities that rivaled many sentient races, while Alexander learned to interpret the subtle language of bioluminescent patterns that shadow stalkers used for communication. The Concordate's classification system underwent its first major revision in 3 centuries. Planets previously marked as Class 5 Apex Predator, authorized personnel only, gained an additional notation, "Warning, bring a human." Dr. Lexi published papers that won her the Unified Sciences Award 3 years running. Her former colleagues on the station became the foremost experts on human-predator relationships in the galaxy. Professor Enva established the Novak Institute for Interspecies Communication, while Quool developed new protocols for apex-predator interaction that revolutionized xenobiology. But the real changes happened in the quiet moments between human and shadow stalker, in the trust that grew between two beings who should have been natural enemies. Alexander found in Midnight not just a companion, but a reminder that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than any classification system could capture. Years later, when asked about that first day in the Krishan Basin, Alexander would smile and stroke the scarred ridge above Midnight's eyes, a permanent reminder of their first meeting. "I didn't save Midnight's life," he would say. "We saved each other. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose to trust, even when everything you've been taught says you shouldn't." And Midnight, understanding more than words could convey, would pulse with warm amber light, a glow that had become synonymous throughout concordate space, with the miraculous possibility of friendship between species that evolution had designed to be enemies. Their bond became more than just a scientific curiosity or a diplomatic breakthrough. It became proof that intelligence, compassion, and courage could transcend the apparent limitations of biology itself. In a universe often defined by conflict and misunderstanding between species, Alexander Novak and Midnight offered something unprecedented hope. Together, they continued to explore the Christian Basin and 100 other worlds, each adventure adding new chapters to the growing library of interspecies cooperation. Where once there had been only fear and violence, they cultivated understanding and partnership. Their story inspired a generation of explorers, scientists, and diplomats to approach the unknown, not with weapons drawn, but with open hands and open minds. The Concordat would never be the same, and perhaps that was the greatest gift of all. The knowledge that even in the vast, dangerous expanse of space, friendship could bloom in the most unlikely places between the most impossible partners. And in the warm glow of binary stars, setting over an alien horizon, human and predator would rest together, partners in an adventure that had only just begun, living proof that the universe's greatest weapon against the darkness was not force, but understanding.